Hey, welcome everybody. This is the town board meeting for August 24th, 2022. We're starting right at 6:30 p.m. As a reminder, all of our meetings for the town board, planning board, zoning board are all done in a hybrid model. So we've got folks joining us via Zoom. People are watching on Facebook and YouTube. If you're interested in joining us via Zoom, at the top of the agenda is the instructions to attend. We do have a public hearing tonight. So if you're interested in making a comment via Zoom, please make sure you log in. Other than that, Councilor Denton, will you lead us in pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Just a reminder, everybody, you can make sure to silence or at least put on vibrate your cell phones. And then first up, it's a small change we have on the agenda. It's going to be Stu Weissman for open podium. If you just come up to the podium. So just for a refresher for everybody, open podium is an opportunity for residents to come in to have 3 or so minutes to talk to the board about something, address some concerns or ask some questions. So first up, we have Stu Weissman.
Thanks for saying 3 minutes or so. Thanks to the board for giving our group, Citizens Aquarium Review Group, Aquarium, a chance to make a couple of comments and ask questions. Apparently my comments or what I'm about to say in part was set forth in writing and sent to the county legislature last week. So really nothing I say should be much of a surprise if anybody read that. Let me preface my comments by stating clearly, either myself personally or the group are against an aquarium. We don't have any fundamental problem with, captive fish, etc. But we believe that the decision to build it should be fact-driven, data-driven, and that seems to be a problem. Our group has initial findings. People are still going through the report more thoroughly, and so there may be some future comments coming out. So very briefly, the Inner Harbor Aquarium proposes a yearly operating budget of about $12 million. The aquarium study, many pages long, projects about $10.4 million to be generated from revenues of residents and traveling visitors, paying about $22 for an adult and $16 per child. The study bases these financial projections on about 1,400 visitors a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, evenly split between tourists or travelers and locals. The study's tourists come from 5 feeder markets: Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, New York City, and Buffalo, with a combined population of about 33 million people. The study's projection of hundreds of thousands of tourists a year, hundreds of thousands of tourists a year, may be reasonable if there weren't major aquariums in both New York City and Toronto. These 2 metro areas with a combined population of about 26 million people of the 33 have aquariums that frankly dwarf the envisioned Inner Harbor Aquarium, which is projected to be about 80,000 square feet, 600,000 gallons. First question, why would significant numbers of tourists, hundreds of thousands, visit a much smaller aquarium and city in the dead of winter? In other words, if about 70–75% of the study's tourist market is unlikely to visit, are the study's fiscal projections inaccurate at best, or perhaps misleading at worst? To help inform answers to these questions, please note that the Canadian metro areas have alternate aquariums. The Toronto Ripley Aquarium is 135,000 square feet, not quite double, but close to it, with more than 1.5 million gallons of water. It's just under 5 hours to Syracuse. Niagara Falls Aquarium is on the way as well. Montreal has no aquarium, and it's about 3.5 hours from the 48 aquarium of Quebec. and about 4 hours from Syracuse. Ottawa doesn't have an aquarium. It's between 4.5 hours, 4 to 5 hours to both Toronto or the Quebec aquariums, and Syracuse is about 3.5 hours from Ottawa. So maybe someone from Syracuse to save an hour. New York City's Brooklyn Aquarium is on Coney Island and has 14 acres of land. It dwarfs in every conceivable way the size of the contemplated aquarium. Aquariums closer to New York City than Syracuse. Among those are a nonprofit maritime aquarium at Norfolk, Connecticut, 140,000 square feet, 250,000 gallons approximately, 1 hour drive from New York City. Mystic Aquarium in Mystic, Connecticut, 141,500 square feet, almost 2.4 million gallons, was founded in '73. It's a 2.5 hour drive from New York City as opposed to maybe a 5 hour drive from New York City, 6-7 hours from Rhode Island, Syracuse. Adventure Aquarium in Camden, New Jersey has a total tank volume of over 2 million gallons and public floor space of about 200,000 square feet. It's about 2 hours from New York City. Philadelphia is 20 minutes away. Buffalo, I think one of the subject areas, has nearby Niagara Falls Aquarium, smaller, 32,000 square feet, 172,000 gallons. Toronto is 2.5 hours away with its admittedly superior aquarium. So why did the study virtually ignore all the aquariums that are the true inner harbor competitors, with the exception of the Niagara Falls, Norwood, and Mystic Aquariums? What happened to New York City? Am I out of time?
Yeah, just if you'd like to make 1 or 2 more statements.
Yeah. Miraculously, I'm at the last.
There we go.
The final question is whether the Onondaga County Aquarium feasibility study was subjective or an objective assessment, because a lot of taxpayer money. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have anyone else here in the audience for open podium? Do we have any? Oh, yep. And then if there is anybody on Zoom who would like to speak, you could just raise your hand so we can start getting you promoted to a panelist to speak. That would be great.
Just out of curiosity, where I started, can I ask you what your group was?
Yeah, it's Citizens Aquarium Review Group, CARB.
Is that a local Bayfield group or Manlius?
It's, well, I guess I'm the Manlius chapter, but I think it's mostly Syracuse based. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Mary Teskey. I live in the village of Fayetteville on Redfield Ave. Thank you for this opportunity. I love this, that I can come and do this. Love that we can Zoom. I've been watching the meetings. I watched the zoning board meeting. I believe, was it just the other night? I'm not sure. Recent.
On Monday, Thursday.
And so I just want to make a comment about that. I think the zoning board is excellent. I think they listen to people for their open meeting. Their topic was, I don't know if anybody's aware, but they have, for some reason, they have to vote on something to do with the dump. I don't really know all the facts, but so be it. What I found interesting was that that came to light out of that meeting was that people that bring in documents to get permits, no timestamps on them. So we don't know when those documents are brought in. And the gentleman, I don't know their names, the gentleman that's the head of that board said that he spoke to other towns, other villages in the area, and their best practice is to timestamp. It's not part of the code, but I think that you as a board should consider quickly. This doesn't have to be something that takes a year to decide. I don't know if it's a law or a policy that any documents, not just from the zoning board, but maybe other boards, I don't know, need to be timestamped. That's best practice in the area. And it would take care of some of the questions about the actual timeline of when things were done. And I'm very concerned and hope that you, as a board, will get on this right away.
So just to clarify, we do stamp in a lot of what comes in through the planning development office and the clerk's office. I believe what ended up happening with this is there was a lot of different documents and we don't have a requirement of every single one stamp, but we've already been having conversations about that process. And I do thank you for coming and sharing with us.
But
It's
just-
definitely something.
It's a checks and balance.
Absolutely.
Best practice issue, and I hope that, is it gonna be a law to do that or a
No,
policy?
just a policy.
So I hope that, how will I know when you consider that policy to put that in place? How would I find out? Will it be
We
on
could
your
discuss it.
agenda?
Yeah,
We could discuss it at a meeting once we've got that in
We
place.
could do a draft and approve it here.
Sure.
And once we do that, the highlights from the clerk summarize the decisions and the issues that are before us. And that's a quick way to check on
Highlights
things.
from what?
Highlights from the clerk, which is available right on our website. It's one of the first things you can see. Check
So
it out.
would you expect that I could see that in the next month, 2 months, or 3 months?
Probably
I think it
1 to 2 months, and it'll be on the agenda, and then it'll be in the minutes and the highlights once
should-
we're
Thank you
done.
for listening. Thank you all for listening to me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience who'd like to share for open podium? Anyone on Zoom? If you'd like to share, just please use the raise hand function. Okay. So moving on, we have the public hearing for Twin Shores, the North Burdick Street site from CA and RA to CA, RA, and R5. Would someone like to make a motion to waive the reading of the notice? You want to do secret first? Yeah, cool, okay. So we'll do secret first. Sounds good to me.
So before we open the public,
So this is, yeah, so this is an environmental review that we do for every major decision.
And we have done this on this project several times, so it's not going to be a significantly different process.
Mhm.
We have already declared ourselves the lead agency at the last meeting through our resolution.
Mhm.
And I have filled out.
And the environmental review is specifically regarding the change to our.
So right now, it's RA and CA. The change would be modifying some of the properties from CA to RA or RA to R5. So essentially what we're saying is we're going to change the zoning potentially to allow for apartments on that site as opposed to
Or for just high density
retail,
residential.
high density residential, but so,
I have one technical question.
yes.
In the materials that were presented, there was also a slight modification of the line between like the parameters of the CA section. Is that also up for secret?
Would be the whole thing.
Well, it would be the
It
whole
would
thing,
be the
yes.
whole
thing.
So, yes, we're going to consider the new map that's been presented to us from a seeker standpoint. The primary change has been the R5
Right, yeah,
district. So that's kind of keep that in mind.
Yeah.
We're not considering a project or buildings. We're just considering changing the zoning to allow the uses that are allowed under R5. Okay. So we're going to begin part 2. There are 11 questions. I'm going to ask each of you these questions. I will assume there will be, because we've done seeker on this before, it's a large 130-acre parcel. It's kind of an isolated parcel, separate and distinct from any other residential parcels. There is retail across the street. There is medical across the street. There is a assisted, that's not assisted, there's an apartment across the street for 55 and older. So it's not out of the character of the neighborhood to put R5 zoning in this, but we will go through this to make sure what I just said makes sense to you. Okay. The first question: will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulation?
No.
Everybody agree no or small impact?
Agreed.
Okay. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of the use of land?
Yes. Oh,
The zone change.
the zone
zone
change to
change.
R5 would permit mixed,
Yeah, it would
much
permit.
more intensive use.
Right.
Well, more intensive than
Nothing.
commercial.
Well,
No,
RA.
No, it's what it was
Or
originally,
RA.
but it was RA.
Which is RA, of course, is residential. So I'm not,
I mean, I guess I would say it would, it's.
notice small,
moderate.
Notice small,
I would say maybe moderate.
and notice small or
Notice.
I'm a notice small.
notice
Notice
small, notice small.
Caitlin?
You're,
I agree with you.
okay.
Melissa?
But
I'm saying notice small.
All right. Again, keep it in the context of
The zone change.
the zone change,
Right.
not in the context of
The
The
development.
site.
the development.
But
But
that is what we're
That
saying,
there's a
what
set-
could be built there.
There's a
That's the
separate
potential.
secret process for whatever gets built.
you're right, there is a potential.
The theoretical
For higher
versus the
density, that's the
practical.
point of
Yeah.
this, yeah.
But the question is, will the residential component of this be significantly changed? Because you might have more people living there than maybe.
Okay, well, let's think about that for a second. Originally, we thought maybe the plan was going to be more single-family
Right.
homes. So it's actually more intense in one part
Correct. That's
versus
what I'm
more
trying to-
intense overall.
But then too, the CA going to R5 would technically be less.
That's intense.
Well,
So
yeah,
it's like a-
Yeah,
It may be balanced out.
Yeah.
so I think no, just small impact can certainly be justified.
Yeah.
Okay? Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of an existing community?
No.
Small. CEA, we don't have a CEA, critical environmental area near this property. The proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walking.
So the zone change will not.
Can I just ask about the last question? Isn't the Erie Canal considered a critical?
No, we only have one critical environmental, a critical environmental area is actually a designation that a town board makes about a specific property or a specific area in the town that meets criteria that makes it a unique parcel.
Mhm.
We only have one of those in the town of Manlius, and that's at Three Falls Woods.
Right.
That's the only critical environmental area, actually. There's one other critical environmental area in Onondaga County, and I think it is Carpenter's Brook in Canals.
Gotcha.
So those are the only two that I'm aware of in the Onondaga County that are been designated by town boards as critical environmental area. Once they're determined to be critical environmental areas, then when you go through the secret process, you have to give that you have to get that more attention
Right.
to determine whatever the project is not going to affect that parcel.
Understood.
Okay.
Thank you. I remember you saying that before about Three Falls Woods.
Yes.
So thanks for saying it again.
Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonable, available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities?
No.
Very small. Will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies or public-private wastewater treatment utilities?
Not, it's all, it's all.
Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of an important historical, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resource?
No.
Very small. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, things like wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, or fauna?
With the water. Yeah, that's.
There's floodplain piece that we.
But there, that's what's staying RA, that's not changing.
Right. Yep.
And of course, the zone change itself doesn't do
Right.
that. The construction on that site would, but that'll be a separate seeker.
Yeah. And that'll be handled by the.
Note small. Will the proposed action result in an increase in potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems?
Not the zone change.
No, this doesn't change.
And will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health?
No.
So based on the answers, the answers to those 11 questions, I would recommend that this board issue a negative declaration, meaning that under the state environmental quality review, this zone change application will not have a significant environmental impact in and around that area.
I propose the motion that is a negative declaration for the seeker. For the Twin Shores, North Burdick Street, property, zone change. Thanks.
Sure, I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I'll abstain.
So you have five.
Five in favor.
Caitlin,
Did you see me? I raised my hand for in favor. Hopefully that counts.
And I have one question for you, Tim. Did
Yeah.
you take the secret questions from your magic drawer?
no,
That's
no,
what we wanted
this
to
drawer
know.
is not opening for some reason. It's
Tony jammed it? Was
I
that
don't
it?
know,
Okay,
but no, that's sorry. But I heard,
you have to watch all the meetings.
I
to
heard the
understand
town
show.
clerk did a fantastic job of secret at the last meeting.
Knocked it out of the park.
So I think we're in a position now to open the public hearing.
So I need a motion to waive the reading.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries. Okay, and motion to open the public hearing.
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries. Okay.
John,
so-
is my hand waving sufficient for my voting?
Yes, I am looking at you when I call for the vote.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so this, just as a reminder for everybody, so this is the property that we looked at for a zone change request earlier this year. It was mostly unused. Now, there's been a change in the intended use. So the zone change request has been resubmitted with a different set of zones, the biggest being the R5 difference. With some commercial A on the, what would be the southern portion of the site. So
Yes.
we never see it north and south with the southern part of the site. Okay, so I would ask if anyone in attendance is here to speak at the public hearing for this zone change. If anybody is in attendance via Zoom,
Also have a comment to read that was.
okay, great. So if you're on Zoom and you'd like to make a comment for the public hearing, please just use the raise hand function and we'll get you promoted to a panelist.
What's in the Q&A?
Q&A is about after church. Okay. Lori Diekman of 100 Collin Avenue Road. Please record my objection to the zoning for the 129 acre parcel on North Burdick Street. Since the only reason given for this change is to potentially build 300 homes, movie theater, retail space, and town offices, it is a no-brainer for any Fayetteville Village resident to oppose the challenges. It would bring in the way of unmanageable traffic, noise, and light pollution, environmental concerns, flooding, aging infrastructure, and school system capacities.
Thank you. Do you have anybody who raised their hand?
No.
I'll ask one more time. Is anybody here to make a comment for this zone change? Okay. So,
Before we do that, the comment that was just made, it had a broad brush and it didn't reflect the updates.
yeah, I
So it's
think,
almost like that person was commenting in the original.
I think in
proposal,
general,
not
and
this zone
we'll,
change.
we'll let
No.
applicants
Mhm.
after the public hearing, but
Yeah.
I think my understanding of the situation now is that with how much is R5, there is significantly less planned commercial development on that southern part of the site.
Mhm.
When we did this originally, there were two major sections of commercial A.
Yeah.
And then we had it as, I believe, R1 in the, I guess that would be the eastern portion of the site.
Yeah.
You want to go to the end of the purple.
Well, actually, that's the one like that. That is the zone change.
applicant is sharing that map.
Yeah, that's the zone change.
So.
Thank you.
So, seeing no further comments, I need a motion to close public hearing.
A second.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carries. Okay. The applicants like to come up and say anything before we further deliberate? No?
No, unless there's any questions.
No? Okay. So, any further discussions, any comments?
questions, and I don't know if this is related to a zone change, but I was wondering about the road that potentially would be built, if it would be privately owned or publicly owned.
It would eventually be deeded to the town, it's a public road.
And then I was wondering how, if that was the case, then how much would that cost to maintain, since potentially that road will be in a floodway?
Rob? If
It's a road.
So Elaine's question is a road that might be partially in the floodplain. Is there much more intensive maintenance schedule for that?
It's obviously, yeah, most of the-
Yes, we do.
So the fact of the matter is, depending on the build.
Yeah.
Whether, what, the town has a standard, if we build our own box.
Yeah.
So, in fact, feel very comfortable, built by town standards.
So, yeah.
We just had in the tree commission meeting, Aline, a conversation about a new kind of material that's being mixed here by Greenscapes or a local landscaping company that works with the soil, and it's a kind of, so depending on your plantings, it's especially good at that, absorption.
Yeah.
So there are some innovations there, but I would think that this is again, something in the process that the higher standard around rain, stormwater management could be.
Yeah.
Could be another process.
And that would be all part of the plan.
Yeah, exactly. The planning board would address a lot of those
Yeah.
concerns.
And we're presenting to, tree commission is going to present to the planning board, the tree code.
Oh, fantastic.
Oh, great.
So,
Yeah.
recommendations.
No, the other comments I just had are what the Saga County Planning Board mentioned about building in a floodplain and discourage, and different comments like that, which.
And I did want to make sure that was mentioned too, with the.
Yeah, I think this one was a little bit more than we got on the previous one. But I think a lot of it is pretty much laid out the same as before. I mean, I think for developments of this size, I think we see a lot of these similar comments, traffic, site layout, all these different things, which, the applicants have seen that, and the planning board will have this, that'll be a large part of that, the site plan review conversation. Anything else?
Why does the CA go back more? Is it just for parking? That's why.
I'm assuming just to maximize the buildable space.
Partially to maximize the buildable space, but so as to not have any issues with crossing subdivision lines for zoning.
Oh, great, yeah, makes sense.
So it's just following the line.
Anything else? I'd entertain a motion. Zone change?
So,
Hang on, I just want to stop this arrangement.
so I have drafted a resolution, which I think I provided to all of you. So everybody can see what we're voting on. That's the resolution to make the zone change. Does anybody have any questions about?
And as always, we fill in the blanks after the meeting's
Yeah.
completed, which has virtually what the meeting number is, but we can't lock those in until after it's been completed. So
Absolutely.
they are empty by design.
I'm happy to make a motion to vote.
Yep.
On
Local law number.
local law number,
2014.
whatever it is, which is
I believe it is 7.
which is the zone change for the Twin Shores North Burdick property. Properties, yeah. The parcels, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parcels. Anybody want a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor? Okay. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
We are very excited to see what happens with this piece of property. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, I was told by our town clerk that County Legislator Olson will actually be attending our September meeting, the first September meeting on September 14th. I think it was, I think,
It might actually be, so I'm gonna need to speak with him. He wants to come after the budget was adopted. When you and I talked on the phone,
yeah,
he had said that very clearly. I want to come after the budget is adopted. Our next meeting will still be before the budget is adopted, so I want to actually just talk to him and make sure that it's not gonna.
yeah, so we'll confirm that we know that the
Exactly.
meeting will be attended.
I just said the next meeting, and I don't know if he said that was the first meeting in.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I want to state publicly that I really appreciate how accessible, the mayor of Fayetteville has been worked. And that I understand as legislator that he's been very good about reaching out to your supervisor. There are so many questions that we have, not just about the aquarium vote that he took, but also about a number of other areas that it isn't satisfactory, I think, to the constituents for us to have him report to us what happens after the fact, especially when the legislature is such a black box to begin with in terms of their meetings are always midday. Still very difficult to listen to the meetings, and agendas are not easily accessible. And 85 million plus conversations about Hopkins Road and others. This is tons and tons of money. And before the whole next year is decided upon, I think it's important publicly for us to have a chance to talk with the legislator and give the people a chance to access him. He has not held a town hall. And so we were really looking forward to seeing him at our previous meeting. And we were really looking forward to seeing him at this meeting. And I think it's too late to see him after the budget has been adopted.
So why don't we do this? Do you want to maybe draft up some high-level questions, and I'll see if he'd be interested in, prior to the budget being adopted, maybe we can, even if it's just something over Zoom that we can publicize and say, hey, we'd like to have a little bit of Q&A here.
I promise to be super friendly. I really do, but I need to be firm and friendly and insistent upon presence. Yeah.
Can we also send our recording, because that first comment was for.
Yeah, we'll make sure he gets the recording.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you. I'm happy to work on that.
It's also not nice that we publicized on 2 agendas now that he's going to be here, and last minute we were being told he is not here now.
Understand. Anything else on that? Okay. So next up, we have the opening of the public hearing for the Apple Tree Ridge Water District. Right, we're just, because this is just to accept the map plan report. Oh, yeah, this is the public hearing on the creation of the district.
Yeah. So I would go to waive the reading.
Oh, second that.
Move to waive. the
Yeah.
reading.
You can vote on it too, but it's motion first.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? Okay, carries.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? Okay. Opposed? Carries, okay. If anyone here is in person to make a comment on the Apple Tree Ridge Water District, please approach the podium.
We do have a comment in the Q&A. And her question is, were the written comments received, and they were, and distributed to the town board, and will the continuation to the September 14th meeting, maybe we won't meet the deadline for the New York State Water Project?
Yeah, so the question is related to the funding for this project. And because this is a very small water district, the cost per home is higher than the comptroller's guidance. So before we could apply for funding through the water infrastructure.
Water quality infrastructure.
No, it's two I's. Water Infrastructure Improvement Act. We would have to get comptroller's permission, so we would never have had time to apply for September anyway. It will have to go to the comptroller's office to get authorization, and then we would be permitted to apply. The WIA grants come around all the time, so it's not like this is makes the water project impossible. But the next step after this authorization is the comptroller.
So we'll miss the short-term deadline, but
Yeah,
we
we'll still
expect
be-
that
We'll
we
still be
raise the
marching
budget.
along the way toward.
I know that the comptroller's having his annual breakfast on the 30th of August. I know I'm going to be there, so I can do my best to, and we can, any of us that are there can say hello and also mention that, hey, this is gonna be coming across your desk. If that, just to put that out to the constituents.
Well, thank you.
Sure.
All right, so no one else is here to make a comment on that, and we do, looks like Bill.
We have a hand raised. Now we have 2 hands raised. All right, Bill was first, so I'm gonna allow this one.
Mute. There we go. Did it work?
Can you just get your name and address, Bill, please?
Bill McGinnis, 4833 Apple Tree Ridge, Manlius. So the map plan report that we all paid for, you're going to accept it, and you're going to forward it to the comptroller. You get approval to go over the threshold, or why is it going to the comptroller?
Comptroller decides if basically if New York State funding can be utilized to build something that's gonna cost more than whatever the comptroller's limit is per household.
All right, because yeah, his like threshold's like $1,000, and we were looking at 4,000. So you're going to show him that it's going to be $4,000, and it's untenable for the neighbors. I mean, we can't attach that to the property, right? I mean, that's insane. I guess my one question is, okay, well, that's great. So maybe then he'll be like, yeah, it's untenable, apply for a grant. I got it. I'm still stuck on the fact that me and my neighbors had a price from Aqua for about $75,000 to do this work, right? And Aqua's a government agency, and the town of Manlius is a government agency, and we did reach out, and everyone's been very helpful to try to bond it off so it gets attached to the property, as opposed to, ponying up 25, 30 grand of household. But then obviously there's some law in New York State where the town can't contract with another government entity, being Aqua. Am I correct in that?
That's my understanding of it.
So if it becomes a water district, then it becomes a public project. Because once it becomes a public project, there is a competitive bid component to this, where it would have to be sent out to bid based on our engineer's review of prices today. And where they are seeing the market, they're anticipating the cost of the bidding, the cost of the legal side of this to put together the bid package, which won't be me, by the way, and the cost of the bonding to
Fund it for 30 years.
to fund it for 30 years will bring the total cost to the three property owners that we're talking about to about $4,000 a year. And that, so the property owners could enter into a contract with Aqua, separate and distinct from a water district. So we would be out of it. The town of Manlius wouldn't have any say in the individual contracts you entered into with Aqua. And you could do that tomorrow if you wanted to. And it's my understanding that the reason that wasn't palatable to the 3 residents was because you didn't want to come up with that kind of money up front. You'd rather bond it over 30 years.
Right.
Of course, my recollection is that the estimate that Aqua provided was from 2019 maybe, or 2018. And as we all know, prices have gone significantly higher since then. And I don't know that Aqua would stand by those prices today.
Well, I reached out to Aqua again. I mean, their price went from like, I think 62 to about 76, because they just use their term contractor. So,
Right.
I mean,
So
it's just, we're going to talk to the comptroller. Couldn't somebody be like, this just makes no sense
and the aspect of government where there is a price of $72,000. But because of this, the residents are going to have to pay $251,000. Like, can the comptroller be like, you know what? Maybe the town could hire Aqua or something and
Town
buy.
has to do a competitive bid.
Yeah, the town has to do, but what about, could the people in the water district just do financing on their own? And then put it into, if there's leaving, if you, hey, you can do financing on your own, and then if you're moving, you know you're gonna move, it's part of your deal.
So, Bill, I'm hearing what you're
You
saying.
have choices.
I'm hearing what you're saying, and I would be shocked, frankly, at the controller's office, because they do have the latitude to allow it over the threshold of $900, but 4 times that much, I just don't.
No,
see that.
he's not going to do it, and I'm not going to pay that. I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
But I just don't understand. Again, I'm just a layperson, so I don't know. Something a third of the cost.
I think I can speak for everyone on the board and probably everyone in the room. There's many times when we look at something and we have to ask ourselves, why isn't it just a little bit simpler? It seems obvious. And this is something that is just based on town law, based on state law, all these different things come into play. And, you know, for better or for worse, we aren't allowed to always just do what might be the most simplest or most straightforward, because we do have a lot of rules that we have to follow. As stated, you know, we would have to go out to a competitive bid in order to do that.
I also think it's the difference between the rules are built for different scales of properties. I think you're getting caught in the crossfire of being 3 homeowners.
Yeah.
Versus
In
being
a rule that's built for.
in a rule that's built for that, yeah, much larger. So that's what's going on here, I think.
Still not, yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, all right. Okay. Yeah, I'm
Thank you,
good.
Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Carol Lacqua next.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, thank you for holding the public hearing. Bill, I understand the pain. It makes no sense to me either. But I wondered if the board had received my written comments regarding the public hearing and had a chance to read them. If not, I will bore you and read them out loud to you now.
Well, Bill, if you'd like to read it to us and put it into the public record, we'd be happy to listen.
Carol,
Okay.
Carol, can you spell your last name for me for a second?
Sure, it's ILACQUA.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
So I'll
got it.
just-
Yeah, we have your comments. I read them. Yep.
Okay, so I'll just read the email if I may.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you, Town Board, for accepting the Apple Tree Ridge Map Plan and Report at your August 10th, 2022 meeting and holding this August 24th public hearing for the creation of the proposed district. As you know from previous correspondence and board action, the residents in the proposed district paid for the original map plan and report. That was in 2021, and we have exhausted all avenues for funding available to private citizens. As an aside, we understand the board's advisement that, of course, we could all seek personal financing, but we're really looking for some sort of municipal financing. So as residents of one of the 3 parcels that would benefit from the creation of the water district, we is myself and my husband, David Samuel, we would like to reiterate the reasons for our support of the creation of the district. 1, our home relies on a shallow well cistern on another resident's property to provide all water to the home on our property. This well has run dry several times in the 22 years we have lived in the home, despite year-round use of water conservation methods. With this year's New York State DEC drought watch in effect, it is very possible that our well will soon run dry again. This health and safety concern is real and an ongoing threat. 2, the other 2 parcels that would benefit from the creation of the said water district are currently receiving poor quality and or inadequate supplies of water from their respective wells. One resident's water is so murky that even with water treatment, the family must buy all drinking and cooking water and do laundry at a laundromat. The other parcel's water also requires treatment, and despite that treatment, the water has an odor and taste that is unpalatable. The residents of these 2 parcels suffer health and safety threats that are real and ongoing. 3, the cost of building the infrastructure necessary to bring water to the 3 parcels is in question, outstrips the ability of the residents to pay for the infrastructure privately. We ask that the town of Manlius create the municipal entity of the Apple Tree Ridge Water District and pursue funding for the infrastructure that will meet the town's fiscal parameters and the residents' ability to pay. Sincerely, Carol Alakwa and David Samuel, 4853 Troop K Road, Manlius, New York.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, anyone else on Zoom here to make a comment? Okay. Seeing no one else here to make a comment?
Motion to close it. Well,
No,
no,
we can't.
we can't close the public hearing. So the public hearing will be held open until the next week.
And
Go on, the public hearing is still open.
may I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Why is it staying open?
Go ahead.
There was a small issue with it not being printed in the newspaper on time, so we just hold it open.
Gotcha. Okay, understood.
You're welcome to come again next meeting, but you don't have to.
So we will hold that open. So next up, we have the zone change request for 4600 Enders Road from RA to CA. Do we have applicants here to?
We have one on,
Or-
hold on one second, changing that name. Okay.
Are they one of the phone numbers?
All right, go ahead.
Hi, this is Grazi Zazara. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Great. All right. So guys, again, my name is Grazi Zazara. I'm the president of Icon Companies, a real estate development firm here in Syracuse. Just a quick background on Icon. You know, we've got a track record of working together with municipalities to develop properties that demonstrate, you know, innovative and responsible land use and that set the tone for future development in the community. Most of the projects that we've done involve taking underutilized buildings, converting them to either mixed use or residential communities. 4600 Enders Road caught my attention because I live on that side of town. You know, it's obviously a great location, but also it's got a good size to the building and a lot of land with it. The property's underutilized right now, and I feel it'll continue to be underutilized due to the current zoning and the uses permitted under it. Our initial vision for that property involves absolutely no changes to the building's exterior, but more to operate it as a venue for private events and gatherings. Think small weddings, holiday parties, baby, bridal showers, corporate events, things of that nature. At the same time, because of our backgrounds, you know, as a future fallback option, we feel a zoning that permits apartments or a mixed use is not only ideal for the site, but it also complements the surrounding property uses. And from, you know, my research, the existing zoning code, at least from my interpretation, doesn't have anything that permits both of these uses. So the goal this evening was simply to introduce myself and begin a dialogue with the town to explore changing the zoning to some kind of classification where both of these uses may be permitted. I guess I'll turn it over to you for some feedback and questions.
you very much. I know there was some conversation around, I think in general, the board wasn't necessarily comfortable with the commercial A. So I know I spoke with the applicant on the phone, I think just yesterday, and I had mentioned that there was some conversation about RM, that we are looking at modifying RM to eventually allow for, where now in an existing building, it allows for mixed use. We are looking at updating that so that new builds, but in this situation, RM would allow for a mixed use or really just residential use of this property, as far as we can tell.
Yeah. My reading of the RM district, and of course, Tom is the one who will gets the interpret the code for instance, but my reading of the RM district allows uses that they list, that the town board has listed in an existing building. It does not say that you can only have one use. It says uses, not use. Yes.
But it doesn't mention existing building, does it?
Yes, it does.
It does.
Yeah. Yeah, we were looking at that. It's an interesting way to do it.
Uses as set forth below and other uses of a substantially similar kind upon approval or provides a site plan and accessory use permit pursuant to article whatever, provided that such uses are confined to a building existing on the effective date of this amendment. That's 155-20E2.
Knowing that site, it makes a lot of sense to see that usage happen. I have a question around, I'm sorry, did I interrupt you, Elaine? We're gonna ask a follow-up. So my question is more about maybe assessment when a tax exempt organization takes in, expands its commercial activity. Does assessment assess differently then?
Yeah,
Okay.
once something is no longer a church, it is no longer a church, and it goes right back to being whatever it would have been otherwise.
But it is still, of the building? I'm assuming that this is an expansion for the church, not.
No, so this is the, here, I'll show you.
You're buying the
Yeah, this
property,
is-
correct?
So, Mr. Zaraza, are you planning to purchase this?
It's the old one, not the one.
Oh, the old one. Gotcha. Apologies. Go ahead.
So emotional.
Yep, so that makes sense.
So just to step in a little bit, as long as the church owns it and is not using it for commercial purposes, it will probably remain exempt from taxation. I don't know that, but logically that makes sense to me. As soon as, because the church, it's still a church property, and I believe it would be.
If there would have to be an exempt use where it would be, they would have to do payment for a non-exempt purpose in the building that they own, like if we don't need to get into.
You have to reapply for that.
Yeah.
So yes, you have to every year you have to verify that it's being used for the commercial purpose.
Yeah, it's being purchased.
Yeah, they're under contract to purchase.
I'm sorry, I missed that. My
So it would
apologies.
no longer be.
But that's good to know. Yeah, okay, great. We're good. So it's
So
just
then
regular
if they change ownership, then obviously it'll be assessed differently. than it is right now.
than it is now. Well, that's interesting. That's a benefit.
So I think relative to this application, the proposal that Mr. Zavara gave us was to go to commercial A.
Yeah.
I think what we're trying to feed back
A little
is
more.
we would prefer not to go to commercial A, but to go to RM,
If it's gonna meet
which
the.
we have to, which is still fluid at the moment.
Before we do that though, too, we do have a property that is across from Target, that's RA, and they were allowed to do events. As like the Wellington Mansion, and I was wondering how they were able to do that in RA. Wouldn't this be a similar?
When I was reading RA, it's not permitted in RA, they must have been
Oh, yeah.
existing non-conforming.
We found a non-conforming issue.
The Wellington House, I've been around a long time, but I haven't been around that long. They either had a separate, my understanding is they either had a separate use variance that allowed them to operate the way they were operating under a use variance. That's my recollection of why they were allowed, yes. I don't think
Is it like in
I don't think
the
you
grant of
qualify for
special
use variance
permit?
but I wasn't, it was,
If it was a use variance, how long would that be? Like,
it
enough
runs with the
special-
land.
It just goes with the land. It's
Runs
not like
with the
7
land.
years for a special permit. Goes with the land.
It runs with the land.
The other difference with Wellington is Mr. Thomas lived there.
Right.
Okay.
And do you remember any of that? Robert? That's my, that's my recollection. My recollection, it was that a use variance was granted to operate a restaurant, banquet venue type facility.
Makes sense.
So, but that's not ideal for RA,
No.
so we would want to change it.
No.
So then,
Use variances are never a good thing.
okay, good to know.
So the one thing we're looking at, though, I'm looking at RM right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not seeing anything here that would qualify the current version of RM for like an event space.
Right. We were talking about the updates that we want to make sure.
So for everybody, we are in the process of working on providing some amendments to the RM zoning ordinance that would create, I guess I'd like to think of it as perhaps modernization of how mixed use has evolved over the.
Well,
past
to
decade
really
or so.
serve as a transitionary district between commercial properties and residential
Which
properties.
was what is intention, but it
Yeah.
was written before a lot of these uses were ever envisioned. So we just want to bring it up to speed with these additional options that mixed use might include. And that is planned to be done promptly. So we're not trying to put you off. We're planning to work on it in September.
Yeah.
So it should not drastically hold up your development plans.
And are we feeling that, I mean, obviously we have to come up with language to represent this, but what they're presenting is not a 300-person venue, which I don't believe would make sense in a transitionary district. However, they're essentially saying, I mean, probably 50 people max, maybe 75 for some of these events. Do we feel like that would be something that you would be looking for in a
But then we would
transitionary
have
district?
to, we can't determine what somebody's business model is. What we'd have to do is say something like the size of the building or something like
Well,
that.
it's like, yeah, the existing building, which is already in.
You would put a square footage,
So the building is
standard in that.
15,000 square feet.
Yeah, and you would say no more than X people per square foot. And we would look at, we would look at modeling or
Yeah.
those types of,
Yeah.
those types of uses and come up with a standard that we can put into the local law.
So if it's 15,000, but RM is 10,000, but it's existing, that would be okay.
It might require variance.
Oh, it would be okay.
We're back to this.
I think it's 10,000, that's what the dentist.
I mean, that's what normal, like modest is considered to be 10,000. So 15,000 is a little bit.
I'm trying to see if it is in here or
I don't think there's a,
not. Is it? I thought the dentist office was only, because they were RN, they wanted to go so big.
I don't think so.
I don't see anything about 10,000.
Yeah, I don't-
square
I'm
feet.
trying- I'm probably mixing it up with something else.
Just saw the acreage, but I didn't see.
Okay.
I don't think. it's-
There is a lot coverage component within RM currently. So that would be another way to propose modest size, because there's a lot size consideration and also.
Well, I also think too, it would make a lot of sense to talk about maybe a maximum lot size for RM,
Mhm.
because it is meant to be,
That's what-
it's not meant to span this
Right, so
very large
there is
space.
there is a maximum lot size. So I think we can look at modifying this, but this is a good example of some kind of a banquet facility that isn't written into any of our codes, like nobody ever envisioned that this would happen at all, which is funny since there was one here all along. But,
Yeah.
Yeah, what about, okay, so yeah, so I'm thinking like we have this particular size space for functions we're talking about. I think that the giant spaces or small spaces are things that this particular size, is that?
Well, no, we would have to look at what is used by other communities to
Yeah.
say there's one person for this many square feet. So we would have to come up with that number, and then we would let the applicant know what we think is gonna be appropriate for a transitional district, and they would decide if they'd like to move forward with a change to RM.
So, okay, and we can talk about this in the
Yeah.
workshop period of it. I want to dig into and understand the rationale behind person equaling, like bodies equaling intensity or intensity of use and stuff. Like I want to just dig into the logic that underpins
Well,
the
so
people
the square
model.
footage
Yeah.
is a way to say there's only so many people allowed in a certain size space.
Which, yeah, all the fire
Which-
codes.
And then the code or the zone itself would determine, it already has a lot coverage percentage, so you can only build so big a building on so big a space.
Yeah,
And then with maximum lot sizes, you can only build so big a lot, so that means we would be able to put in the code that buildings around this size are the maximum allowed, and that we would determine, do we think a building that fits 50 people is appropriate for a transitionary mixed-use district? 100 people, and then we would set the square footage needs based off of that.
yeah, I mean, I think lot size makes more sense
Yeah.
versus, I don't like get the people part of it, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, I
Because
would-
I think it limits us so much, I don't understand,
Sure.
yeah.
And two, because it's already like factored in with the fire code.
Yeah.
so that-
Yeah.
You're the town board. You can make it, you can do it any way you think it makes sense.
Yeah, I think physical space, because then, well, then you've got hybrid events, and so like you've got people beaming in, do they count towards the number? Like, blah, blah, blah. I think the fire codes exist for the safety measures,
So
and,
we'll just look at building size, lot size. that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, and then the other question I had too is, because there's a daycare and a school there, is this appropriate, like with alcohol, I don't know how
I
that.
mean, there's a gas station right across the street, there's Stingers right there.
True, yeah, I know that.
Yeah, Stingers is right there, so I don't think there'll be any distance issues if they look to, go for, whether it's a wine and beer or a full bar license.
And when it's
Feels
something like
like-
that, wouldn't we be, like, we wouldn't be looking at the use, like, we were not, like, for a zone change request, like, would we be considering whether or not they're serving alcohol, or would that not be, that wouldn't be relevant to that discussion?
No, so that'll be up to them, they'll have to determine, so when we do the zone change, we're just looking to say, we think it's appropriate for, things that are zoned this way to follow these rules. And if
Right.
they would be asking for a zone change. And so if they have a plan to provide alcohol of any type for events, they would have to do the due diligence. It's irrelevant to the zone change.
And that's like a state.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Good question. Okay. So I guess to the applicants, does that sound like a good idea to keep moving forward if we kind of suggest to put a little bit of a pause, wait for our amendments to the RM zone, and then look to move to try and use the RM zone if it meets your needs?
Yeah, it sounds great. And to be completely transparent with you, the quality of my audio, it's probably on my end here, but I probably took in about 60% of the side conversation there. So I know you didn't hang up on me, and I know you didn't slam the door. So it sounds like there's some path forward potentially. So would it be possible to have a follow-up call with a summary or some minutes?
Oh, absolutely,
Later
no
this
problem
week?
at all.
Okay, cool. Okay,
You can
great.
also
Yeah,
play
I'd love to
that.
chat by phone tomorrow or Friday, but yeah, it sounds
Yeah, I
promising.
can meet,
and-
and I'll give you a call and I'll make sure we send you a link to the video just so that you can kind of catch everything.
Perfect. That'd be great. But yeah, it sounds promising. We're very open-minded, and hopefully we can
Yeah.
work together to get to something that brings some
Yeah, that
value.
sounds great. And it's, to
Okay, thank you all.
see an older property get reused into something new that would fit
And Phil,
the,
that's what we want.
yeah, that's fantastic. So thank you very much, and I'll reach out to you guys over the next day or two.
Thanks. Have a great night, guys.
Have a good one. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll make sure I share the work session where we talked about, where we went from creating an overlay district to having more of an RM conversation. And then I think it's a good opportunity now when we've really got two different properties that we're looking at RM. This is a great time to maybe, we'll have to see, either three of us can meet to discuss maybe a draft of that, or we'd have to schedule a public meeting.
Yeah, Sarah and I are working on it, so.
Perfect.
sounds like you're the,
Yeah, very
Yeah.
good.
So let's plan to get a meeting together. Let's look to have a draft at least by our next meeting.
It's our plan, is to have something, then we can do a public hearing on the revisions.
Yeah.
Tinker with it based on the input from the public, and then they could go live before the end of the year.
That sounds great. Okay, fantastic. So,
That sounds realistic too.
Sounds good.
yeah, great. So next up is the zone change application for the Seven Pines project at 8104, 8108, 8112, and 8116 Casanova Road. We have folks in attendance in person or via Zoom to present that.
This is not a public hearing.
Yeah. Or the applicant? Yeah, if you'd like to come up?
Well, I mean, we didn't really have anything prepared.
Yeah, no worries.
We're the substitute.
Can I just say, it is easier for people to hear if you do come up.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah, you're good, thank you.
Yeah.
Just in case there's questions.
yeah. So, I know I spoke with, I spoke with someone yesterday, I believe, the owner of the property.
Okay,
We talked about, yeah, Mr. Shishak. I think in general, I know we got the recommendation from the planning board to go to RM. And based on the reading that we have here, it looks like RM, would be the appropriate zone for that. That does allow for both commercial use on the bottom and a residential on top. Were there any, obviously, as the conversation we had, we're looking at amending that to not just allow for existing buildings, but new buildings, but also to kind of probably expand some of the allowed uses there. And so.
And could you just
Yeah.
reiterate who you are?
oh yeah, I'm Jeff Foster. We represent the owner. We manage the buildings for him.
Oh, fantastic.
He could be here, so.
Yeah, and then the zone change as we have it was the application for RM?
I believe it was put in by the architect.
It was.
So,
It was.
because it was from CA to RM and RA to RM.
Okay. So, I mean, at this point,
I have a couple of questions if it's okay. Are there any offices on the second floor now, or are they actually vacant?
There are some offices on the second floor now, some are vacant. Yes, the intent would be to relocate people into other vacant spaces and then develop the second floors.
And there are multiple buildings, so we probably do one building at a time.
Four buildings.
4 buildings, depending, yes, I mean, you'd like to do it all at once just because for cost purposes, but it's gonna come down to how you can, the arrangements you can make with these tenants who have a lease in place. Either they wanna move and do space, or they're just gonna stay where they are. So ideally, they'd like to do it all at once, it's really gonna depend on. if we
It
get
seems
all
like it could be
pieces.
road, like not
Yeah.
actually go away and come back, but just to kind of roll down.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, so, and do you have, in general, without getting into specifics, do you have sufficient square feet to accommodate all those people to relocate within the facility?
We believe we do, yes.
great, that's good. to hear. So my understanding is at this point, if we're interested in moving forward, we would schedule a public hearing tonight?
We don't have the law ready to.
Oh, we don't go already. Okay,
So,
so,
so what we wanted you to know is because we had previously discussed this at a work session, it was not an official meeting, to simply say, we are working on this, that this project has not been dropped, that we are interested in getting it through, but that we are doing this other process that will get in, will delay it by maybe a month.
well, their uses would fit within the current RM zoning code.
But I think it's unfair for them to take a code and then change it.
Doesn't, I mean.
It's legal, but I just thought it would make more sense to know what your.
I guess it'd
rules are.
really be up to the applicants if they're comfortable with that.
Wait, yeah.
So I can have if this board wants me to.
Yeah.
Draft a local law to change their zone from a commercial A zone to a.
And RA too, they're CA and RA.
Your CA and RA?
Yes,
I think so, yeah.
yes.
Okay. Then we have to change it to RM, and I will have something drafted for the next meeting, which will set the date for the public hearing for the meeting after that. So we're
So,
looking at that end of
yeah, so
September for the public
14,
hearing.
we'll have the local law drafted, and then we'll schedule the public hearing for the 28th. And then, we've already made all the referrals, correct?
Yeah, we've gotten back, the planning board has gotten back to us. So we're
Yeah,
good
so we
with
just
that.
need to have a public hearing.
So it's the 28th.
The 28th would be the date of the public hearing.
So we can schedule that public hearing, but we can't schedule it today. We can.
Yeah,
you
we'll
can
have the
know-
next
Schedule
meeting.
it the next
You
one.
can know that you don't have to come to the next meeting, you just come to the coming.
So September 14th is scheduling the public hearing, having the law, 28th is the public hearing, and then ostensibly October 12th is the resolution of.
No, we can probably do it on the 28th if everybody's comfortable.
I mean,
with that.
obviously depends if we get a lot of public comment and we need more time to consider, but at this point, it sounds like RM makes sense for what you guys are looking to do. It makes sense from our perspective, we're interested in, you know, seeing that
Well, I'm
property.
surrounded by residential.
Yeah, it's, I mean,
It's really a perfect, we're
Yeah.
transitioning
About
that.
it.
I will say too, we've had the conversation of doing a mixed use type of district. And it just so happens that your project came in before we scheduled the first meeting to
Well,
talk
we knew
about
what
it.
you were thinking.
No, it's great. Yeah, if everybody could be a little, you know,
Mind
be able to
reading.
mind reading, that would be great.
Mind powers.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for
So
coming.
we'll see you on the 28th of September.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So then next up, we have the Fayetteville Manlius School District Syro SPO agreements. And we did receive a note that previously we've done this as one motion. So just to kind of bring everybody up to speed. So these are the officers that work in the schools over in the FM district. And this is authorizing those contracts for another year. To make it clear, while the officers are employees of the town of Manlius Police, we do receive payment from the school district for these officers. There is obviously a little bit of overhead there, but it's a service that we provide to our residents, and the school has a great track record with this program. We know that the parents in the community and the kids love having these officers in the schools. It's a great opportunity for them to build a little bit of a relationship with these officers, and I know it's been proven that the connections and relationships they build in the schools has shown to have a very clear positive effect on interactions outside of the school. So we would probably have to do this as the Syros and the SBO separately. Those are two separate contracts. The wording's different.
No, we
Or
did
we
it all
could
in
do
one motion.
everything as one, okay?
I'd like to make a motion to authorize Supervisor Deere to sign the 2022-2023 agreement between the Town of Manlius Police Department and the Fayetteville Manlius Central School District for School Information Resource Officers, Syros, Officer Golden, Officer Grogan, Officer Palmer, and Special Patrol Officers, SPOs, Officer Hack, Officer Leroy, and Officer Mellick.
And also, David.
Oh, and Officer Damon. Wait, sorry,
I think
Officer,
it's just that, it's not, yeah, it's on the agenda.
Officer Damon, excuse me.
Okay. Do I have a second?
A second.
All in favor? Okay. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Okay. So next up is the supervisor's monthly report.
Alrighty, I would like to make a motion to accept the July supervisor's report.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries? Okay, good. We've got the July 27th minutes.
Just those though, not.
Yeah, just, yeah.
Which one?
No,
July
no, no.
27th.
July 27th.
So Alyssa, do you want to do that? Or did they do what you want?
We did. We actually reviewed the tapes, and what had happened was initially, Counselor Pearsall had seconded it, then Alyssa said something, and it was changed to Alyssa, and so that's how it happened.
I will make a motion to approve the July 27th, 2022 meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I abstain.
Abstained? Carries. Got the number 16 abstract, but I believe there's a small modification.
Yes.
DED.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve abstract number 16 in the amount of $485,695.87, which does include a payment to the plug-in stations online because our charging stations arrived and we do to pay them half when they arrive. And then the rest later. And the winners this 2-week period are the trash contract, which it always is. The rec department's been very busy. And we also paved and we purchased those pistols that we have discussed.
Fantastic.
The rec department's been very busy, but most of that's been coming from their clearinghouse.
Yeah.
I
So
was-
which is to mean that families pay.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, and I think and I'll tell you, as signing all the checks every week, what's been great to see is that they have had a ton of employees. They've had a really great time. Everything okay? Okay. The new counselors and everything they had were fantastic. They're actually at 2019 levels, so really quick to bounce back. Really great to see. So
Okay, so we need a second.
Yes.
all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
All right,
Motion carries.
Nathan, you're up.
Wait, actually,
Okay.
we were told that there was we don't actually have to vote, so what's the, so
Sorry.
I was told that I have to simply call for a second, and once there's someone seconds.
No, that actually doesn't have an executive session.
Yes, we
Oh, executive session, okay, so,
we need to go into executive session to discuss a litigation matter, an ongoing litigation matter.
Move to go into executive session, okay. I think Melissa just said, I'll second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed,
Thank you.
carries, thank you.
What do I do? John?
both way off.
Yeah.
I'm off more than you.
Yeah.
I get it. When are you coming back, Kayla?
We have to be at the airport at 4:30 in the morning, Friday morning.
Good.
How lovely for you.
Okay,
We're back.
It's gonna be rough.
okay, I will, seeing the executive session's over, ask for a motion to adjourn.
I will make a motion to
Do you have
adjourn.
to close it?
I make a motion to close the executive session.
No, we did that in executive.
Okay,
All right, then I'm back to making a motion to adjourn.
Okay, thank you. I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carries. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, guys.